She didn't raise her voice. She didn't fight back. But in just minutes, she was taken into a private room for questioning. Why? Because she was a black woman in the first-class lounge. What no one knew, she had the power to bring the entire airline to its knees. At Northwind Airport in the US, the first-class lounge was filled with wealthy people in fancy clothes. Expensive suitcases rolled across the marble floor. The air smelled like perfume and power. Then a woman entered who didn't look like the others. Her name was Danielle Moore. She wore a simple gray dress and carried a worn navy blue carry-on. Her hair was pinned back neatly, and she walked quietly, holding her phone with a first-class e-ticket. She didn't look rich, but she didn't look nervous either. She walked with calm, quiet confidence. People stared. Some whispered. A few staff spoke into their radios. Across the room, Marla Griggs, the head of security, noticed her immediately. Marla had worked at the airport for 15 years. She believed first-class passengers should look a certain way: rich, flashy, powerful. Danielle didn't fit that image. Marla narrowed her eyes and tapped her radio. Suspicious passenger at the first-class check-in. Begin identity check now. 2 officers walked over to Danielle. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just waited calmly. A young woman at the desk asked to see her ticket and ID. Danielle showed both. But Marla wasn't done. Ask her why she's here, she said coldly over the radio. And what her seat class is. The young staff member looked embarrassed, but followed the order. Miss Moore, she said softly, can you explain the reason for your trip? Danielle finally spoke. Her voice was strong and clear. I'm flying to Seattle for business, and yes, I'm in first class. Marla stepped away from her desk and walked toward Danielle. Her shoes clicked loudly on the marble floor. You're in the wrong line, Marla said, her voice low but sharp. Economy is over there. Danielle looked straight into her eyes. I know exactly where I belong, she said, with a calm smile. Marla's face tightened. She signaled the officers. Take her to the interrogation room. The officers looked uncomfortable, but they obeyed. Danielle followed without argument. She walked with quiet strength. What Marla didn't know was this. Danielle Moore was not just a first-class passenger. She was a top financial executive at a global company called Stratex Group, and she was leading a secret audit of Blue Jet Airlines, the very airline she was flying with. Just yesterday, Danielle had approved a $4.8 billion rescue fund to save Blue Jet from bankruptcy. Today's flight was a test to see how staff treated passengers who didn't look powerful. Inside the small security room, a male officer asked coldly, "What's your full name?" "Danielle Moore," she said, calmly. "Why are you dressed like this if this is a business trip?" he asked with a sneer. "How I dress has nothing to do with my business," she replied, her eyes sharp. His partner opened her bag. Inside was a laptop and a sealed envelope with Stratex Group's red wax seal. "What's this?" she asked. "Work documents," Danielle answered. "We need to open it." Danielle didn't flinch. "If you break that seal, you'll need a lawyer and a court order. That's the law." The officers froze. They looked at each other, shocked. Danielle added, "If this is a random check, say so in writing. If someone sent you, I want their name." Moments later, the officers let her go. Danielle walked out, calm and strong. Marla, watching from the camera room, clenched her fists. Her power was slipping, but she still believed she had control. Danielle took her seat in first class. A few passengers glared. One man whispered, "Looks like anyone can get a first-class seat these days." Danielle turned her head and replied softly, "Do you really think money is the only reason someone belongs here?" The man turned red and looked away. The flight's lead attendant, Susan Griggs, was Marla's cousin. She smiled at the other passengers and served them politely. But when she reached Danielle's row, she ignored her completely. Later, Susan came back and said loudly, "Miss Moore, we need you to move to the back for weight balance." Danielle stared at her, silent. Then she asked, "Why me? No one else is being asked." The cabin fell quiet. Passengers looked around, confused. Susan stuttered. "It's just standard procedure." Danielle picked up her phone and opened Stratix's secure app. She typed one sentence: "Audit complete. Begin official investigation." Susan had no idea that her rude request had just triggered a crisis. Danielle looked at her and said softly, "If weight is really the issue, maybe the problem isn't my seat." Susan stepped back, speechless. When the plane landed, an airport official came for Danielle. "Miss Moore, please come with us." She followed without fear. In a private conference room, the airline's top executive, 2 security officers, an FAA official, and Susan Griggs sat at a long table. The mood was tense. "Miss Moore," the executive said, "we were told you caused a disturbance during the flight." Danielle said nothing. Instead, she opened her bag and pulled out the sealed envelope. "I'm Danielle Moore, Senior Ethics Auditor at Stratix Group," she said clearly. The room froze. "I regret to inform you that Blue Jet Airlines has failed this audit completely." Gasps filled the room. Susan's face turned pale. The executive looked shocked. "I recorded everything," Danielle continued. "Every act of bias, every disrespectful word. I'm not here for apologies. I want real change." Starting today, she tapped her phone and played the hidden video. It showed Marla and Susan mocking her, making rude comments, and giving unfair treatment. No one could deny the truth. The FAA official spoke. "This is a serious violation. We will demand a full investigation and action plan." Danielle looked at the airline executive. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about how you treat every customer." That day, the fallout began. Stratix suspended its $4.8 billion bailout. Blue Jet stock crashed. Investors ran. Marla Griggs was removed from her job. Susan was taken off first-class flights and sent to work low-end routes. All staff involved were required to take anti-discrimination training designed by Danielle herself. She didn't want revenge. She wanted change. A week later, Danielle returned to the airport. No one stared this time. No one whispered. She walked past a small help desk in the arrivals area. Sitting behind it was Marla Griggs. No title, no badge, just a tired, quiet woman in a plain uniform. Danielle stopped. Marla looked up and froze. I'm sorry," Marla said, her voice shaking. Danielle looked at her for a long moment. Then she spoke. "You were right, Marla. I'm not like most people in first class." Marla looked confused. "I didn't come here just to sit in a seat," Danielle said gently. "I came to see who still knows how to treat others with respect." Then she walked away. People nearby paused, quiet and thoughtful. Danielle hadn't come to punish. She came to remind the world of something important. True power is not in money or status, it's in treating people with dignity. Would you have spoken up if you saw what happened to her?